I'm James Carter. In a world where the vibrant arteries of interconnected communication have been violently severed, leaving behind only the static hiss of broken technology and the echoing silence of a disconnected existence, information has undergone a profound and terrifying transformation. It is no longer a readily available commodity, a constant stream flowing through invisible networks. Instead, it has become a fragmented, fiercely guarded treasure, a currency more valuable than the dwindling reserves of fuel or ammunition. And in this vacuum of verifiable truth, rumors, those ephemeral whispers carried on the wind like the rustling secrets of a dying world, have taken on an unprecedented power. They can ignite the faintest sparks of hope in the most desolate of hearts, painting vivid, almost hallucinatory visions of sanctuary and resistance in a landscape dominated by despair and the ever-present, shuffling threat of the infected. But hope, untethered to the solid anchor of verifiable fact, is a treacherous phantom, a shimmering mirage on the parched horizon of human suffering. It can be so easily manipulated, twisted into insidious propaganda by those who seek to control the fractured narrative, leading the vulnerable down treacherous paths of false promises and ultimate devastating ruin. Misinformation in this brutal new reality isn't just a careless lie. It can be a swift and irreversible death sentence, leading the unwary into the waiting embrace of unimaginable horrors. Having narrowly clawed our way out of the brutal, almost ritualistic aggression of the metal-clad scavengers, their unsettling, rhythmic clicking, a persistent and chilling reminder of the terrifying depths to which humanity can sink in the face of annihilation, we found ourselves once again cast adrift in the vast, unpredictable, and often malevolent currents of the unforgiving outside world. The immediate, visceral threat of the relentless military pursuit, though a constant, suffocating shadow lurking at the periphery of our weary awareness, had momentarily receded, replaced by the gnawing, persistent uncertainty of our next objective, our next desperate gamble in this deadly game of survival. The stolen tablet, Sasha's silent, steadfast companion, a weighty and precious presence in her calloused hands, remained our most crucial and potentially life-saving possession. A digital key unlocking a possible future, a digital Rosetta Stone hinting at a world, a fragile possibility beyond the immediate, brutal struggle for mere existence. The cryptic geographical coordinates, the recurring, almost mythical designation, Outpost Nightingale, the fragmented, chillingly clinical notes of the deceased scientist. These were the ethereal whispers we now desperately clung to, our fragile, flickering hope tethered to these digital breadcrumbs scattered across the vast and unforgiving wilderness. The memory of the military facility, its sterile walls, and the horrifying truth of Project Chimera was a fresh, festering wound in my mind. The image of the Chimera schematic on the soldier's tablet, the chilling realization that these monsters were engineered, not natural, fueled a desperate need to find others who might understand, who might fight back. The notes on Sasha's tablet, salvaged from the scientist, were fragmented, filled with jargon, but they hinted at a network, a resistance, a place called Outpost Nightingale. It was a name whispered in the dark, a rumor, but in this world, a rumor was all you had. Our arduous journey towards this elusive, almost mythical sanctuary was a stark and brutal reminder of the multifaceted and often terrifying realities of this broken world. The landscape, once a familiar tapestry of verdant forests and rolling hills, now bore the indelible, weeping scars of the apocalypse, skeletal remains of once bustling civilization choked by the relentless, indifferent embrace of overgrowth, silent, rusting testament to a vibrant world tragically lost to the ravages of the infection and the brutal, often indiscriminate efficiency of the military's attempts at containment. The air, once crisp with the scent of pine and damp earth, now carried the faint, cloying sweetness of decay, a constant, unsettling reminder of the pervasive death that clung to every shadow. The ever-present threat of the infected remained a constant, a shuffling, moaning presence in the periphery of our senses, a grim and persistent reminder of the ever-present danger that lurked around every bend and shadowed every copse of trees. We encountered the familiar, gray-skinned shamblers, their eyeless faces a testament to the horror they embodied. We saw the four-legged variants, their unnatural gait and speed, a chilling reminder of the virus's adaptability. Each encounter was a desperate dance of evasion and brutal, close-quarters combat, our dwindling ammunition a constant, gnawing worry. But now, layered upon this familiar, terrifying danger, were the subtle, unsettling, and often far more insidious signs of other human activity. Individuals, and perhaps even small, isolated communities, operating entirely in the shadows, beyond the long-grasping reach of the military's iron fist of control. We encountered makeshift shelters, crudely but ingeniously constructed from scavenged scraps of wood, rusted metal, and tattered fabric, often tucked away with a desperate ingenuity beneath rocky overhangs or cleverly concealed within dense thickets of thorny undergrowth, their very existence a testament to the enduring human will to survive against impossible odds. Some were little more than lean-tos, barely offering shelter from the elements, suggesting a fleeting, desperate existence. Others were more elaborate, small, almost defiant bastions against the encroaching wilderness, hinting at a more permanent, albeit precarious, hold on life. We discovered coded symbols meticulously etched onto smooth rock faces, worn smooth by time and the elements, and onto the weathered bark of ancient trees that had stood witness to centuries of change, intricate patterns that hinted at clandestine communication networks, a silent, desperate language of survival whispered across the desolate miles between isolated pockets of humanity. Some were simple arrows pointing towards hidden caches or safer routes. Others were complex, almost artistic glyphs, their meaning lost to us, but their presence a powerful reminder that we were not entirely alone. We even stumbled upon traps, cleverly concealed snares, and brutal deadfalls, designed not for the lumbering, mindless infected, but for something far more intelligent, something human, a chilling and visceral testament to the darker, more predatory side of survival in this brutal new ecosystem. A tripwire, almost invisible against the fallen leaves, led to a weighted log suspended precariously above. A shallow pit, covered with a flimsy layer of branches and dirt, hinted at a desperate attempt to catch unwary travelers. These were not the crude, desperate traps of a lone survivor, but the calculated designs of those who saw every other human as a potential threat or a resource to be exploited. These encounters were often fleeting, leaving us with a complex and unsettling mixture of fragile hope and gnawing unease. Were these unseen individuals and communities potential allies in our desperate fight for survival? A glimmer of resistance in the overwhelming darkness, or simply more wolves in sheep's clothing, their desperation twisting them into predators in this dog-eat-dog world, their intentions as opaque and dangerous as the shadows they inhabited. We had brief, tense interactions with other survivors, often from a distance, a fleeting glimpse of a figure disappearing into the trees, a sudden sharp warning shout from an unseen voice, the glint of a rifle barrel from a hidden vantage point. Sometimes we would find a small offering left behind, a handful of dried berries, a half-empty water bottle, a silent, ambiguous gesture of either camaraderie or a warning to keep moving. These moments were a constant reminder of the diversity of human responses to the apocalypse. Some, like us, were driven by a desperate need to rebuild, to connect, to fight for a greater truth. Others had retreated into isolation, their survival paramount, their trust in others shattered. And then there were those who had embraced the darkness, becoming predators themselves, preying on the weak, their humanity stripped away by the brutal realities of this new world. The arduous journey itself was a brutal and relentless test of our physical and emotional endurance. Treacherous, unforgiving terrain, the constant, gnawing emptiness of dwindling supplies, and the persistent, soul-crushing ache of hunger chipped away at our already depleted strength and resolve. The insidious paranoia, the unwelcome residue of our time spent in the suffocating confines of the military facility lingered like a persistent shadow, making us wary of every rustling leaf, every snapping twig, every unexpected sound that broke the oppressive silence of the wilderness. Trust had become a fragile and precious commodity, earned only through shared hardship, whispered confidences in the dead of night, and the unspoken understanding forged in the crucible of shared trauma. My side still throbbed with a dull ache, constant reminder of the brutal efficiency of our captors, and Sasha's limp, though less pronounced, was a visible testament to the price of our escape. Even Artem, who possessed a youthful resilience that often surprised me, carried a quiet weariness in his eyes, a subtle acknowledgement of the constant dangers that surrounded us. Ivan, ever stoic, moved with a grim determination that belied his own fatigue, his silence a comforting anchor in the storm of our anxieties. We rationed our meager supplies with meticulous care, each mouthful of stale food a bitter reminder of the world we had lost. Sleep was a fitful, restless affair, haunted by nightmares of sterile labs and screaming chimeras. As we pressed northward, our weary bodies driven forward by the increasingly frequent and deliberate markers, a length of brightly colored cloth tied to a high-swaying branch, a carefully arranged cairn of unusually shaped stones, placed with deliberate intention beside a forgotten trail, a tangible sense of anticipation, fragile bud of hope, began to slowly build within the barren landscape of our despair. The ethereal whispers of Outpost Nightingale, once faint and distant, now seemed to be growing louder, more insistent, carried on the very breath of the wind that rustled through the skeletal branches of the trees. The cryptic notes on the tablet spoke of a defensible location, a community that had managed to establish some semblance of order in the chaos. But the notes were old, their author long gone. Could Outpost Nightingale still exist? Or had it fallen victim to the same brutal forces that had shattered the rest of the world? The hope was a dangerous thing, a fragile flame that could be extinguished by a single gust of harsh reality. but it was all we had left. The landscape itself began to subtly but significantly transform once more. The dense, claustrophobic forests gradually giving way to a series of rolling hills, their exposed peaks offering both expansive, panoramic vistas and a heightened, unsettling sense of vulnerability. The air grew colder, crisper, carrying the faint scent of pine and damp earth. It was from one of these windswept vantage points, as the late afternoon sun cast long, distorted shadows across the undulating terrain, that we finally saw it, a more substantial and undeniably significant sign of organized human presence than anything we had dared to hope for in our wildest imaginings. Nestled strategically in a sheltered valley, partially concealed by a thick, almost impenetrable tree line of ancient pines, was a fortified outpost, a high, sturdy wooden palisade reinforced with scavenged metal and sharpened stakes encircled the compound, and watchtowers stood sentinel at each corner, their silhouettes stark against the fading light, evoking images of medieval keeps guarding against unseen enemies. The palisade itself was a patchwork of salvaged materials, corrugated metal sheets, thick timber logs, even the rusted chassis of overturned vehicles, all welded and lashed together with a desperate ingenuity. Barbed wire, salvaged from forgotten fences, topped the walls, glinting menacingly in the fading light. Even from this distance, we could detect the faint but unmistakable signs of human activity within the protective embrace of the palisade. The flickering glow of scattered fires, their smoke curling lazily into the twilight sky, the rhythmic clang of tools against metal, the distant, muffled sounds of voices carried on the gentle breeze, hinting at a community at work, a semblance of normal life in this abnormal world. There was a sense of permanence here, a feeling that this wasn't just another temporary shelter, another desperate attempt at survival, but something more established, more resilient, a defiant stand against the encroaching chaos, a collective breath caught in our throats, a silent, shared acknowledgement of the momentous discovery. Hope, fragile yet persistent, flickered within us like a stubborn flame, refusing to be extinguished by the overwhelming darkness. Had we finally found it? Sanctuary, allies in this desperate and seemingly endless fight for survival? The name Outpost Nightingale echoed in my mind, no longer a mythical whisper, but a tangible reality, a potential haven in a world consumed by despair. But the ingrained suspicion, the bitter lessons learned in the brutal crucible of this unforgiving new world, kept that fragile hope tightly leashed, a wary counterpoint to our desperate yearning. We knew nothing about these people. Were they friendly, welcoming to weary travelers seeking refuge, hostile, territorial, suspicious of outsiders and the secrets we carried? Were they aware of the military's horrifying activities, the monstrous secrets we now carried like a heavy burden, a potential death sentence if revealed to the wrong ears? The rhythmic clicking of the scavengers still echoed in my nightmares, a stark reminder of the darkness that could reside within human hearts. The silence from the outpost, despite the faint sounds of activity, was unnerving. It was the silence of a community on guard, a silence that demanded caution. The episode culminates as we cautiously, almost hesitantly, approach the outer perimeter of the outpost, keeping to the concealing shadows of the surrounding tree line, our movements slow and deliberate, every sense on high alert, every nerve ending screaming with a primal awareness of potential danger. The heavy wooden gate, constructed from thick timbers and reinforced with scavenged metal plating, stands slightly ajar, an ambiguous invitation, or perhaps just a sign of a community secure in its defenses, a silent question mark hanging in the tense air. The scent of wood smoke grew stronger, mingling with the faint metallic tang of blood, perhaps from a recent hunt, or something far more sinister. As we draw closer, a figure, armed with a well-maintained crossbow, held loosely but ready, steps out from the shadows beyond the gate. Their form silhouetted against the warm, inviting glow of lanterns within the compound. Their face is initially obscured by the fading light and the shadow of a wide-brimmed, weathered hat. Another figure joins them, holding a crude but effective-looking spear. They watch us with an unnerving stillness, their bodies tense, their eyes, even from this distance, radiating a cautious suspicion. "Hold right there," the first figure calls out, their voice rough and weathered, carrying the unmistakable tone of command. "State your purpose." Their words hang in the cold evening air, thick with suspicion and the unspoken threat of violence. Sasha tightens her grip on the concealed pistol beneath her jacket, her eyes narrowed, assessing the two figures, the gate, the walls beyond. Ivan remains still, his gaze unwavering, taking in every detail, every potential threat and avenue of escape. Artem, his face pale but resolute, stays close to Sasha, his small hand finding purchase on the fabric of her coat. My own hand instinctively goes to the worn leather of my journal, the weight of the truth we carry feeling both a profound burden and a potential offering, a desperate plea for understanding in this uncertain encounter. The figure with the crossbow raises it slightly, a silent gesture that speaks volumes. The second figure shifts their grip on the spear, their stance becoming more assertive. The wind whispers through the tall grass at the edge of the clearing, carrying the faint scent of wood smoke and something else, the metallic tang of blood, perhaps from a recent hunt, or something far more sinister. The reception we are about to receive, the true nature of this new, unknown faction, remains shrouded in a tense, suffocating uncertainty. Are these the whispers of hope we have been desperately following? A beacon of light in the overwhelming darkness? Or have we stumbled blindly into a new and unforeseen danger? A different kind of cage in this brutal, unforgiving world? A new set of rules we don't yet understand? A new threat lurking behind a facade of potential sanctuary? The answer hangs precariously in the tense silence, the fragile fate of our small, battered group, resting entirely on the next few terrifyingly silent moments, on the words we choose to speak into the gathering darkness, and the reception we are about to receive in this uncertain sanctuary. The gate remains slightly ajar, an invitation and a warning all in one. This is James Carter. This is my journal. We followed the whispers on the wind, and they have led us here. But in this broken world, even hope has a sharp edge, and we have no idea if we are about to find salvation or walk into the jaws of another beast entirely. The silence from beyond the gate is deafening. The answer, whatever it may be, is coming. If you want to know what happens next, if we find allies or new enemies, and if the truth we carry can finally find a voice, then please subscribe to Beyond Blackout.